James Carter had always been a man who avoided trouble. He wasn't the type to pick fights at bars, argue over parking spots, or snap at a cashier when the register froze. To him, most conflicts were a waste of breath. But this was different. Standing in his front yard, fists clenched so tightly his knuckles whitened, James stared at the lifeless bodies of his guard dogs, Duke and Shadow. Their once shiny coats were matted with blood, dark pools seeping into the dry earth. The air reeked of metal and gunpowder. A fly landed on Duke's ear. It didn't move. James's stomach churned. The HOA, the Cursed Homeowners Association, had been after him for months. First, it was letters claiming his fence was too tall, despite meeting county codes. Then came fines for his pickup truck, an eyesore, in his driveway. They wanted his house gone, said it dragged down property values. James ignored them, paid his mortgage, and figured they'd move on. They didn't. Now his dogs were dead. A creak broke the silence. James turned to see Mrs. Evelyn Harper, the HOA's smug enforcer, standing on her porch. Her manicured nails clutched a phone, recording, her face twisted in a satisfied smirk. "They were disturbing the peace," she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "Barking all night. I had to call animal control. Shame the officer got overzealous." James's blood roared in his ears, drowning her out. He stepped forward, jaw tight. "You serious, Harper?" His voice was low, lethal. "They were guarding my property." "They weren't a threat." Harper tilted her head, shrugging. "Oh, don't be dramatic. They were just dogs." That snapped something in James. His hands shook, not with grief, but with a cold, seething rage. Duke had been with him for 6 years, a clumsy shelter pup who grew into a loyal companion. Shadow, a stray who wandered in and stayed, was his shadow on hikes, his guard at night. They were family. And now they were gone because this woman thought she could play God. James didn't scream or lunge. He turned, walked to his house, and made a call. The police arrived, but their lazy strides and bored expressions screamed indifference. Officer Daniels, adjusting his belt, sighed like this was a chore. His partner Ruiz barely looked up from his phone. "What's the issue?" Daniels asked, as if the dead dogs weren't obvious. James kept his voice even. "The issue is that some trigger-happy animal control officer shot my dogs through my fence." Daniels glanced at the bodies, unfazed. "Animal control had the right to use force if they felt threatened." James's nails dug into his palms. "Threatened?" "They were inside my yard." Ruiz muttered about filing a complaint, but James wasn't listening. He knew this was bigger. The HOA had orchestrated this. When the cops left, James sat on his porch, clutching Duke's worn collar and Shadow's First Street tag. His chest ached. He dialed his brother, Ethan Carter, a former Marine with a knack for sniffing out corruption. The phone barely rang before Ethan answered. "James?" Something in James's voice must have set off alarms. "They killed Duke and Shadow," James said, his voice raw. Silence. Then, "I'm on my way." Ethan arrived at dusk, stepping out of his truck with the quiet menace of a man who'd seen war. Taller, leaner, and broader than James, his sharp green eyes scanned the blood-stained yard, then James's clenched jaw. He didn't need to ask what happened, he read it in the air. "Who gave the order?" he asked, his voice a demand. James dragged a hand down his face. "Harper says it was her call, but the HOA's been after me for months. Fines, citations, they want me out." Ethan nodded, his face unreadable. "We find out who else was involved." Ethan didn't wait for answers to fall into his lap. He canvassed the neighborhood, stopping at the diner to chat with a waitress, sitting on a bench across from the HOA office, watching who came and went. Liars always slipped up under pressure, and Ethan knew how to apply it. By the time he walked into the HOA office, he had a theory. The receptionist, a woman who thought she was untouchable, blinked at him over her glasses. "Can I help you?" Ethan leaned forward. Ethan Carter. I have questions about the dogs shot on my brother's property. Her fingers twitched. We're not responsible. Ethan pressed. Who approved the call to animal control? She hesitated. Mrs. Harper made the request. Ethan stared, letting silence do the work. But the HOA authorized it. Another pause. That's internal. Ethan smiled thinly. Do you want a lawsuit? 2 hours later, he had everything. Documents proving the HOA's scheme to force James out, agreements with a real estate firm, and a signed order to kill the dogs. The HOA board meeting was a sterile affair. Polished table, smug faces, and Evelyn Harper at the head, her pearl necklace gleaming. The air shifted when Ethan and James stormed in. Ethan tossed a stack of documents onto the table with a slap that echoed. Harper's face soured. What is this? She snapped. James crossed his arms, voice ice cold. Tell me why my dogs died for your real estate scam. The board stirred, uneasy. Ethan held up a page. This is your plan to push homeowners out with fines and violations. He flipped to another. This is your contract with Crestview Realty to sell James's home for pennies. Then another. And this is your authorization to kill his dogs, signed by you, Harper. Harper paled but rallied. This is outrageous. These could be fakes. Ethan's smile was chilling. They're notarized. The room froze. Harper laughed, sharp and desperate. This is a witch hunt. Ethan leaned in. James is suing. Every document goes to court. You'll testify under oath. Perjury's a felony. A board member, sweating, muttered that he knew nothing. Harper hissed. Coward. James stepped forward, locking eyes with her. I'm suing for fraud, harassment, and the murder of my dogs. When this is over, you're done. The HOA crumbled fast. James's lawsuit, backed by Ethan's evidence, was airtight. A local reporter caught wind, and the story exploded. Corrupt HOA kills dogs in extortion scheme. The public raged. Residents shared their own stories, fines, threats, evictions. The internet tore Harper apart. When the state attorney general investigated, they found fraud, kickbacks, and embezzlement. Harper was arrested, her smug facade gone as cameras flashed. Board members faced indictments, the real estate firm collapsed, and the officer who shot the dogs was fired. The HOA dissolved, replaced by a resident-run group. James attended their first meeting, feeling his home was his again. At the dog's memorial, 2 marble stones engraved with Duke and Shadow, loyal to the end. James stood quietly. The fight had been brutal, but they'd won. Ethan joined him, hands in his pockets. They didn't die for nothing, he said. James nodded, throat tight. Thanks, brother. They stood as the sun set, shadows stretching over the stones. James smiled, a weight lifted. Justice wasn't just served, it was seized. What do you think? Was James right to fight back with everything he had, or should he have walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and share your take on standing up to corruption. Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of justice.